In the year of our Lord 1491, the banners of Castile snapped in the winter wind. Below, the last Moorish stronghold of Granada flickered like a dying ember. King Fernando of Aragon stood upon a hill, gazing at the city. Beside him, the cross of Christendom flew proudly, but across the valley, shimmering above the red walls of the Alhambra, was the crescent moon. For nearly 8 centuries, this symbol had waxed and waned upon Iberian soil. It had risen with conquest, glowed with poetry and science, and dimmed with the endless wars of the Reconquista. Now, it trembled on the verge of disappearing forever. Fernando was no longer a young king. The long campaign against Granada had carved deep lines into his face and drained both his treasury and his spirit. But what troubled him most wasn't the final battle. It was a dream. For 3 nights in a row, he had seen a silver crescent hanging low over Spain. In his dream, it didn't fall or shatter. It simply hovered, luminous and patient, as if waiting. On the 4th night, he summoned an unlikely counselor. Her name was Zara bint Ismail. Once a renowned scholar of astronomy in Cordoba, she was now a prisoner, captured during the siege. She had charted the heavens with instruments far superior to any in the Christian courts. Though her city had fallen years ago, her reputation endured. In the torchlit chamber, Fernando studied her carefully. "They tell me you read the sky," he said, his voice heavy with authority. "I read the patterns God has written there," she replied, her calm composure a stark contrast to the tension in the room. The king described his troubling dream. Zara listened intently, her expression unreadable. When he finished, she asked a simple question. "Does the crescent threaten you in the dream?" "No," Fernando admitted. "Does it flee?" "No." "Then perhaps," she said, her voice soft but firm, "it is not a symbol of your enemy. Perhaps it is a reminder." "A reminder of what?" the king demanded, a frown creasing his brow. "That kingdoms pass like phases of the moon. The crescent becomes full, then it fades, but it does not cease to exist. It simply returns in another form." Fernando was not convinced. "Granada will fall. The crescent will vanish from Spain." Zara met his gaze without flinching. "The banner may fall, your majesty, but what of the knowledge, the architecture, the irrigation that feeds your fields? What of the language that has shaped your own? You cannot unsay centuries." The king dismissed her, but her words echoed in his mind, refusing to fade. Weeks later, Granada surrendered. The last Nasrid ruler, Muhammad XII, known to the Spanish as Boabdil, handed over the keys to the city. As Christian banners were raised over the Alhambra, the air filled with emotion. Some people wept with triumph, others wept with despair. That night, Fernando climbed the palace towers alone, walking through the intricate courtyards that were now his. The moon hung above him, not full, not vanished, but a slender, delicate crescent. He thought of Zara's words. He thought of Cordoba's legendary libraries, of the brilliant physicians and poets who had once walked these very halls. He looked at the arches, so delicate they seemed spun from moonlight, and he understood. He had won a kingdom, but he had inherited a civilization layered upon another, a legacy far more complex than simple conquest. In the months that followed, Spain changed swiftly. Royal decrees were signed, conversions were demanded, exiles began their sorrowful journeys. The king told himself that unity required a firm hand, that these harsh measures were necessary for a new, unified Spain. Yet, he did one quiet thing that history barely recorded. He ordered that the astronomer Zara be spared. More than that, he gave her a small observatory just outside Seville, placing her under his royal protection. Officially, her task was to assist in navigation for Spain's growing ambitions across the Atlantic Ocean. But, unofficially, Fernando wanted her to keep reading the sky. He wanted her to keep reminding him of what he could not see. Years passed. Great ships sailed westward under Spanish flags, their voyages guided in part by star charts refined by minds like Zara's. A new empire began to rise across the vast, unknown oceans. One evening, as news arrived of distant lands and unimaginable wealth, an older King Fernando visited the observatory. Zara, her hair now streaked with silver, stood adjusting a brass astrolabe, her focus on the cosmos. The Crescent still returns, she said without turning around, her voice as calm as it had been on the night they first met. And so does the cross, Fernando replied, standing beside her. Yes, she said softly. And perhaps both are smaller beneath the same sky than we imagine. The king looked upward. The crescent moon shone faintly beside a scattering of stars. For him, it was no longer a banner of war, a symbol of an enemy defeated. It was a memory and a warning. Empires, he realized with sudden clarity, are not defined by the symbols they conquer, but by what they choose to preserve. And there, above a Spain that was Christian, Muslim, restless, and reborn, the crescent endured in the heavens, untouched by kings or their earthly ambitions. It remained a silent testament to the idea that some things are too vast to be conquered, and that true legacy lies not in what is destroyed, but in what is cherished and carried forward. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more tales from the crossroads of history. We'll see you next time.